Marcus Iron Fist Rodriguez stared at his reflection in the locker room mirror, wrapping his hands with the same methodical precision he'd used for the past 15 years of his boxing career. The difference? This time he wasn't preparing for a match against another human. No, tonight's exhibition was something else entirely. He muttered to his coach, Tommy Chen, who was busy checking the special reinforced gloves they'd been provided. When I said I wanted to fight the best in the universe, I didn't actually expect the universe to take me up on it. Tommy snorted. Yeah, well, maybe next time keep your mouth shut during intergalactic broadcasts. Though I gotta admit, watching those stuck-up Galactic Federation officials lose their minds when you called their champions overgrown jellyfish with glass jaws was pretty damn entertaining. Marcus grinned, remembering the way the translator had struggled to convey his exact tone of irreverence during that now infamous interview. The whole thing had started 3 months ago when humanity had finally been discovered by the Galactic Federation. Turned out we were what they called Deathworlder species that evolved on planets with high gravity, extreme temperatures, and generally hostile conditions. The Federation had been all condescending smiles and patronizing pats on the head, right until Marcus had crashed their welcoming ceremony and challenged their best fighters to prove humans weren't just some primitive species to be coddled. 5 minutes till showtime, Champ Tommy said, checking his watch. You sure about this? The medical scan showed these aliens have some pretty weird biology. That Vraxian champion they're putting up first? Guy's got 3 hearts and bones made of some crystal metallic compound. Good, Marcus replied, bouncing on his toes. Means I won't have to hold back. The stadium they'd constructed specifically for this event was a thing of beauty, a perfect blend of human and alien architecture that could seat over 100,000 spectators from across the galaxy. The energy in the place was electric as Marcus made his way to the ring, a simple walkway illuminated by floating orbs of light that changed color in time with his entrance music. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena in multiple languages simultaneously, ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all designations. Welcome to the first ever intergalactic combat exhibition. In this corner, representing Earth and the human race, Marcus Iron Fist Rodriguez. The human section of the crowd erupted in cheers while most of the alien spectators chittered, buzzed, or vibrated in what Marcus assumed was their version of polite applause. And his opponents, the announcer's voice grew even more dramatic. The 5 greatest warriors of the Galactic Federation, each representing a different class of advanced civilization. They will face the human challenger one after another, with only minimal recovery time between bouts. If Rodriguez can defeat all 5 within 1 standard Earth hour, humanity will be granted immediate elevation to class of civilization status. Marcus couldn't help but laugh. The Federation thought they were being clever, setting up an impossible challenge that would put humanity in its place. What they didn't understand was that humans had been training for this moment their entire evolutionary history. The first opponent teleported into the ring in a flash of blue light. Champion Kraz Thul of the Vraxians stood nearly 8 feet tall, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the arena lights. His 3 pairs of arms flexed impressively. A human Kraz Thul's translator conveyed his disdain perfectly. I expected something more. Substantial. Marcus cracked his neck. Funny, I was about to say the same thing. Nice light show with the teleporter, by the way. Really makes up for the fact that you guys can't even walk upstairs without getting winded. The Vraxian's translator crackled as he let out what might have been a roar. Your species' notorious arrogance will be your downfall. Nah, Marcus said, settling into his stance, but my left hook might be yours. The bell rang, and Kraz Thul charged forward with all 6 arms swinging. He was faster than Marcus had expected, but there was something oddly mechanical about his movements. Too perfect, too practiced, like he'd never had to adapt his fighting style to an opponent who didn't follow the expected patterns. Marcus slipped the first 3 punches, blocked 2 more, and took the 6th one on his forearm. The impact was like getting hit with a baseball bat, but he'd been hit harder in his career. More importantly, he'd learned what he needed to know. Not bad, Marcus said, dancing back. But you telegraph your combinations like a rookie. Let me guess you've never fought someone who could actually take a hit before. The Vraxian's crystalline face couldn't show expression, but his body language screamed frustration as he launched another assault. This time Marcus didn't bother blocking. He slipped inside the alien's guard and delivered a perfectly placed liver shot, or whatever passed for a liver in Vraxian anatomy. The effect was immediate. Kraz Thul's lower right arm clutched at his side as he staggered back. The alien crowd fell silent. Fun fact about Deathworlders, Marcus called out cheerfully. When you evolve on a planet that's actively trying to kill you, you learn to find weak points real quick. Your species evolved in low gravity with that nice crystal armor, right? Bet that means your internal organs are real sensitive to shock. The Vraxian tried to respond, but Marcus was already moving. A three-punch combination to the body, each one targeting a different vital area, followed by a left hook that connected with the alien's jaw with a sound like breaking glass. Kraz Thul went down hard. He didn't get up. The human section of the crowd went absolutely wild while the alien spectators buzzed in confusion. The medical team that teleported in actually jumped back when Marcus helped lift the unconscious Vraxian's head. Careful with him, Marcus advised. Think I might have cracked his exoskeleton a bit. Sorry about that, still getting used to the reinforced gloves. The next opponent teleported in before the medical team had even finished clearing the ring. This one was a Meridian, a species that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a supercomputer. They were supposed to be the greatest tactical minds in the galaxy. I have analyzed your fighting style, the Meridian announced in perfect English. You rely heavily on exploiting biological weaknesses. This will not work on me, as my vital systems are distributed throughout my body with redundant backups. Marcus waved to Tommy in his corner. Hey coach, you hearing this? Someone finally did their homework. Less talking, more punching, Tommy shouted back. You've got 48 minutes left. The Meridian proved to be a fascinating opponent. True to their word, they seemed to have no obvious weak points, and their analytical capabilities meant they could predict most standard boxing combinations. Unfortunately for them, they'd made one crucial mistake in their calculations. You know what's funny, Marcus asked as he weathered another precisely calculated series of strikes. You guys are so focused on analyzing patterns that you forgot something important about humans. The Meridian's compound eyes shifted slightly. Explain. Marcus grinned. We cheat. He threw a lazy jab that the Meridian easily predicted and blocked exactly as intended. Because they were so focused on the punch, they completely missed Marcus's foot sweeping their legs out from under them. As the alien crashed to the ground, Marcus delivered a perfectly legal but completely unexpected elbow strike to what he hoped was an important-looking sensor cluster. The Meridian systems went into emergency shutdown. That's not boxing, someone shouted from the alien section. No, Marcus agreed, helping the medical team secure his unconscious opponent. That was Muay Thai. We've got lots of fighting styles on Earth. Boxing's just my favorite. The third opponent was a quantum collective, a hive mind of energy beings that could reform their shared body at will. They took the shape of a vaguely humanoid figure made of swirling light. Your physical attacks cannot harm us, they announced in harmonious unison. We exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Marcus looked at the referee. Quick question, the rules say no outside weapons, but what about using the opponent's own energy against them? The referee's tentacles twisted in what might have been confusion. That would be legal, yes. Perfect. Marcus turned back to the quantum collective. In that case, let me introduce you to another human concept, rope-a-dope. What followed was 6 minutes of Marcus appearing to take a beating while actually letting the quantum collective wear themselves out, trying to affect his reinforced gloves. What they didn't know was that the gloves had been specially designed by Earth scientists to absorb and store energy. When Marcus finally threw a punch, all that stored quantum energy was released right back into the collective's core consciousness. The light show was spectacular. But anyone else starting to notice a pattern here, Marcus asked, as they carried away the temporarily discorporated hive mind. You all keep assuming that just because you're more technologically advanced, you must be better at fighting. But you know what humans are really good at? Taking someone else's advantages and turning them into weaknesses. The fourth opponent was a psychic sovereign, a being of pure mental energy who had dominated their sector's combat sports for centuries. They didn't even bother with a physical form, choosing instead to manifest as a swirling vortex of psychic force. Your primitive physical form cannot hope to, they began. Yeah, Marcus interrupted. Let me guess you're going to crush me with your mind, right? Go ahead, give it your best shot. The psychic sovereign did exactly that, unleashing a wave of mental energy that would have liquefied the brains of most species. Marcus just smiled. Something wrong, he asked innocently as the alien's psychic assault splashed harmlessly off him. The sovereign's voice trembled. How? How are you blocking us? Marcus tapped his temple. Not blocking anything. That's the neat thing about humans, we're really good at compartmentalizing. Right now I'm thinking about my grocery list, my next training session, what I'm having for dinner, and about 50 other things. Try finding a consciousness to crush in all that chaos. While the sovereign was still processing this, Marcus landed a simple 1-2 combination on what appeared to be the center of their energy mass. The aliens' mental defenses had been so focused on offense that they'd completely forgotten about physical protection. As the fourth opponent was teleported away, Marcus checked the clock. 10 minutes left, one opponent to go. The final challenger was something else entirely, a temporal warrior from a species that existed partially outside of normal time. They flickered in and out of reality as they moved, seemingly able to be in multiple places at once. Impressive, the temporal warrior said, their voice echoing from several moments simultaneously. But you cannot hit what exists in multiple time streams. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. You know, about 15 years ago, I lost a really important fight. Guy knocked me out in the second round. I spent years replaying that moment in my head, thinking about what I could have done differently. The alien warped around him, throwing punches from different points in time. Your primitive understanding of temporal mechanics is irrelevant. See, that's where you're wrong. Marcus moved with the kind of precision that only comes from thousands of hours of practice. Because humans might not be able to naturally exist in multiple time streams, but we sure as hell can learn from our past and predict the future. His fist connected with exactly where the temporal warrior's jaw would be 3 microseconds later. The aliens' time-shifting ability actually worked against them. They couldn't change course once they'd committed to a temporal path, making them surprisingly predictable to someone who'd spent their life learning to read opponents' movements. The final bell rang with 2 minutes to spare. Marcus stood in the center of the ring, barely winded, while the alien medical teams were still trying to figure out how to treat a temporally dislocated jaw. The stadium had gone completely silent. Even the human section seemed stunned by what they'd just witnessed. Finally, the Chief Federation representative floated down from their luxury box, their translator struggling to maintain composure. This is unprecedented, they stammered. How? How did you defeat our greatest warriors so easily? Marcus started unwrapping his hands. Because you all made the same mistake. You thought that because humans came from what you call a death world, we must be nothing but strong, dumb brutes. You never stopped to consider that surviving on a planet that wants to kill you might require more than just physical strength. He gestured to the fallen champions. Your Vraxian warrior had perfect technique but no adaptability. Your Meridian tactician could predict patterns but couldn't handle chaos. Your quantum collective had all that power but no endurance. Your psychic sovereign never considered that a messy mind might be a strength. And your temporal warrior? They were so focused on being everywhere at once that they forgot to pay attention to where they actually needed to be. Tommy threw him a towel, and Marcus wiped his face before continuing. Humans, we're not the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest. We're not the most technologically advanced or the most evolutionarily perfect. But we are the best at one thing, taking a beating and learning from it. Every single technique I use today came from thousands of years of humans getting knocked down and getting back up again, figuring out what works and what doesn't. The Federation representative's color-shifting skin had settled into what Marcus assumed was a pale shade of shock. You didn't just defeat them, you taught them lessons. Exactly, Marcus grinned. So, about that class of civilization status. The story spread quickly across the galaxy. Within a year, human combat sports had become the most watched entertainment in Federation space. It turned out that other species were fascinated by the idea of fighting for fun, of treating combat as both an art form and a way to improve oneself. Marcus went on to open the first intergalactic boxing gym, teaching aliens from across the cosmos that sometimes the best way to learn is to get punched in the face by a Deathworlder. The Federation, for their part, had to revise their entire classification system. They created a new category just for Earth Class H, for species that turn evolutionary disadvantages into strengths through sheer stubborn creativity. And if sometimes, late at night in his gym, Marcus caught some of his alien students practicing dirty tricks and improvised techniques instead of proper boxing form, well, that was probably the greatest victory of all. 6 months after the legendary match, Marcus found himself standing in front of his newly expanded gym, now occupying an entire space station in neutral territory. The Iron Fist Combat Academy sign flickered in 15 different languages, including 3 that required psychic interpretation. You know what's ironic, Tommy said, helping a young Vraxian adjust their stance in front of a heavy bag specially designed to withstand crystalline appendages. We spend all that time proving humans are more than just dumb muscle, and now half the galaxy wants to learn how to punch things. Marcus watched as a Meridian and a Quantum Collective attempted to spar, their movements still too calculated, too precise. Nah, they're not here to learn how to punch. They're here to learn how to think like humans. Speaking of which, he raised his voice. Hey, no probability calculations during sparring. If I catch either of you running combat simulations again, it's 50 burpees. The Meridian's antennae drooped slightly. But Instructor Rodriguez, how can we determine the optimal attack pattern without? That's the point, Marcus interrupted, walking over to the pair. You're both so focused on finding the perfect solution that you're missing the whole lesson. Sometimes you need to just throw the punch and see what happens. Inefficient, the Quantum Collective buzzed. High risk of failure. Exactly, Marcus grinned. You want to know humanity's real superpower? We're really good at failing. Watch this. He called over his newest student, a temporal warrior named Zix, who had actually been one of the medical team members from the original match. Zix, throw that new combination we've been working on. The temporal warrior fluctuated nervously. But instructor, I have not yet achieved more than 23% accuracy with. Perfect. Do it anyway. What followed was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Zix threw the combination, their time-shifted limbs moving in beautiful but slightly uncoordinated arcs. Marcus slipped most of the punches, but intentionally let one connect with his shoulder. See that he asked his stunned students. Zix just failed successfully. That last hit landed because they stopped trying to calculate the perfect temporal trajectory and just committed to the punch. And I learned that their left hook is getting stronger. The lesson was interrupted by a priority message on the station's main screen. The Federation Council appeared, looking even more pompous than usual. Champion Rodriguez, the lead counselor, began, "We have a situation that requires your unique expertise." Marcus toweled off his neck. "If this is about the betting pool for interspecies matches, I already told you we're keeping it small and friendly." "No, this is far more serious. We've received a challenge from the Omega Collective." The gym went silent. Even Tommy stopped what he was doing, letting out a low whistle. The Omega Collective. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The mysterious super-advanced civilization that supposedly exists in deep space and thinks everyone else is too primitive to talk to. Those guys finally decided to come say hello. Not exactly. The counselor's skin rippled with concern. They've issued a challenge to prove that younger races deserve their attention. They're sending their champion to compete in what they call simple physical combat against representatives of the Federation's species. The matches are scheduled for next week. Marcus started laughing. He couldn't help it. The aliens in the gym looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Let me guess," he wheezed. "They picked Earth as the testing ground because we're the most primitive Class H civilization you've got." The counselor's translator managed to convey both confirmation and embarrassment. They believed it would be appropriately ironic. "Oh man," Marcus wiped his eyes. "And I bet they have no idea about the matches from 6 months ago, do they? Haven't been paying attention to our primitive communications." "It would appear not." "Perfect." Marcus turned to his students. "Class, looks like we're going to have a practical demonstration of the most important human teaching technique, the object lesson." The next week, the Omega Collective's champion arrived in a ship that seemed to bend reality around it. The being that emerged was a sight to behold, a perfect synthesis of organic and technological evolution, its form shifting between states of matter like a living quantum equation. The Federation had arranged for the matches to take place in Marcus's gym. Another detail the Omega Collective had probably intended as an insult. The alien spectators included representatives from every known civilization, along with Marcus's students, who were trying very hard to maintain proper discipline and not vibrate with excitement. Primitive facility, the Omega Champion's voice resonated directly in everyone's minds. Primitive methods. We will demonstrate true combat excellence. Marcus, who had been casually leaning against the ropes, straightened up. Quick question before we start, did your species ever have to worry about being eaten by something bigger than you? The champion's form rippled in what might have been confusion. We evolved beyond such concerns eons ago. Yeah, that tracks. Marcus nodded to Tommy, who tossed him his gloves. Second question in all that evolution, did you ever have to learn how to lose? Loss is inefficient. We simply succeed. Oh boy, Marcus grinned at his students. Pay attention, everyone. This is going to be educational. What followed was less a fight and more a practical demonstration of everything Marcus had been teaching. The Omega Champion was incredible. Its abilities made the previous alien fighters look like amateurs. It could attack from multiple dimensions, predict quantum outcomes, and manipulate local spacetime. It just didn't know how to handle someone who didn't care about any of that. Marcus took hits that would have atomized most beings, turned failed attacks into successful counters, and generally fought like what he was, a Deathworlder who had learned boxing in rough gyms and rough treats before taking it to the professional level. The end came in the third round. The Omega Champion, frustrated by its inability to comprehend Marcus's seemingly random fighting pattern, attempted to calculate all possible outcomes simultaneously. In doing so, it completely missed the very simple, very predictable right cross that caught it right in what passed for its center of mass. As the medical team, led by a very smug Zix, helped the dazed champion recover, Marcus addressed the stunned audience. You know what makes humans different, he asked, starting to unwrap his hands. We know we're not perfect. We know we're probably going to get things wrong. But instead of letting that stop us, we turned it into a teaching tool. Every time we fail, we learn something new. Every time we get knocked down, we figure out another way to get back up. He gestured to his students. Look at them. In 6 months, they've all gotten worse at calculating odds and running combat simulations. But they've gotten better at fighting. Know why? Because they've learned how to fail properly. The Omega Champion had recovered enough to communicate again. This is not optimal combat technique. Nope, Marcus agreed cheerfully. But it works. And that's the most human thing about it. He turned to his students. Class dismissed. Except for you, Zix, you still owe me those 50 burpees from earlier. The story of the match spread even faster than the first one had. The Omega Collective, faced with their first actual failure in recorded history, did something unprecedented. They asked to learn. Within a month, Marcus had 3 quantum transcendent beings enrolled in his beginner's class, learning how to throw a basic jab without calculating its probability of success. More importantly, the Federation finally began to understand what made humans truly dangerous. It wasn't their strength, or their endurance, or even their adaptability. It was their comprehensive archive of failure, generations upon generations of getting things wrong and learning from the experience. They added a note to Earth's Class H designation warning all members of this species should be considered expert instructors in the art of successful failure. Approach with curiosity and prepare to be wrong. Marcus found that last part hilarious enough that he had it printed on the gym's new t-shirts. They became the hottest selling item in Federation space. The Iron Fist Combat Academy eventually expanded to hundreds of locations across the galaxy. Each one had the same first lesson written on the wall in every known language. Perfect is the enemy of good, and good is what happens when you learn from being wrong. Every now and then, some hotshot new species would show up, convinced they had developed the perfect combat technique. They always left with a gym membership and a new appreciation for the human art of constructive failure. And if sometimes the galaxy's most advanced civilizations found themselves learning life lessons from a bunch of Deathworlders who had originally learned to fight by getting punched in the face repeatedly. Well, that was just another example of humanity's greatest gift to the universe, the ability to find wisdom in the most unlikely places. Tommy summed it up best during one of their advanced classes. You know you've really taught someone well when they stop trying to get everything right and start enjoying getting things wrong. Marcus couldn't have agreed more. After all, he'd built an intergalactic career out of proving that sometimes the best way to win is to know exactly how to lose.